Welcome to the Truth and Fertility Podcast. I'm Haley, wife, mom, and a fertility charting instructor, here to teach you the undeniable truth about your fertility. So let's get started. Good morning. I say good morning because it is a good morning. I woke up, tried to wake up before my kids, and that definitely did not happen this morning. They rolled on in, but I still needed to get this done because I wanted to get this topic out to you guys. I think it's a really important topic. So we may have some visitors today. We may not. You may have some background noise today, or you may not. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're just going to roll with it. We are a culture of life here at the Truth and Fertility Podcast. So here we go. Postpartum depression. Let's chat about it. I really wanted to talk about this because it's very close to me. It's something that I have gone through 3 times with all 3 of my kids, and I've learned more and more with every kid, and I've learned different techniques on how to handle/heal it, and I've learned to give it over to the Lord when I did not have control over it, because oftentimes it's something that we don't necessarily have control over. So I just today wanted to share my story with you, maybe give you some solidarity if it's something that you have gone through as well. And then I did want to just talk too about how I handled it, how I healed it, because I did things that may not be the typical or conventional way of doing things to heal postpartum depression. So let's just dive right into the story. So I have 3 kids, 5, 3, and 1. My 1-year-old just turned 1, and she's crazy. She's so beautiful and so crazy. But anyhow, 5, 3, and 1. And when I was pregnant with my first, I was working full time. And so I don't think that I really had the space to realize that I was having pregnancy depression or pregnancy-induced depression. That is a little bit different than postpartum depression. Postpartum is when you're experiencing depression after baby is born. Pregnancy-induced depression is when you're experiencing depression when you are pregnant. So I don't think I really had the space to recognize what was happening when I was pregnant with my son until I was like 36 weeks pregnant. Like I was about to pop. And I remember finally sitting down with my husband and telling him just some of these crazy, really scary thoughts that I had been having. And something that's really common with either pregnancy-induced depression or postpartum depression is having these what we call intrusive thoughts. So they're thoughts that come into your head that are not from you. They are not from you, and they're very scary, and they can range from a whole lot of different things, but they're just thoughts that pop into your head, and they're just scary. I'll leave it at that. So I was having these thoughts I don't remember how often in my pregnancy, but I had just tried to really, I didn't want to talk about them. I didn't want to acknowledge them. I didn't want to, I wanted to ignore them as best as I could, but they were very scary. And so finally, 36-ish weeks pregnant, I remember sitting down with my husband and being like, I am having these thoughts and they are really, really scaring me. And that was really a turning point, because something with, when you're experiencing depression, these things need to get to the light. I think, depression can get worse or remain bad when your thoughts are stuck in your brain. When you bring things to light, as difficult as that might be, that's when you can actually start working through the depression and working through those thoughts. So right then and there, my husband and I decided, okay, I need to go see a therapist. So praise be to God, I found a wonderful therapist who I still see to this day. He's phenomenal. And I started seeing him for these thoughts, and I did a lot of work with him on saying the thoughts out loud and ultimately bringing them to light, but not giving them the power that they had over me still. So rather that, like, what I learned, I learned these tools to use, that when I have one of those thoughts, I can, at this point, I can acknowledge it. I can see that it's there, and then I just let it flow, and I just don't give it the time of day, right? That's how I've been able to manage those. But anyhow, okay. So I have my firstborn son, and I had him on a Monday. By the following Monday, 7 days later, I was back in the hospital. Every single day of my son's first week of life, I was sinking more and more and more. His sleep was something that really, really kind of triggered me, I guess, where it was something that was out of my control for the first time in my life, right? You have control over your sleep when you don't have children. When you have children, that's something that you have less control over. So it was something that I had never not had control over. And that was what really spiraled me. And when you have depression, especially postpartum depression, it's actually more, I hate to say that it's a natural thing, but the only reason I'm saying that is because when you give birth, your estrogen and progesterone, they fall like so far. You have a very, very deep hormone drop, and that's a natural thing, but that hormone drop can cause that postpartum depression. Kind of like when you are about to have your period, right? You can kind of feel like you're just not feeling all that great. It's because of that hormone drop that's triggering your next period. And so it's kind of the same deal, or the same idea. When you give birth, that hormone drop can cause that postpartum depression. So I was having that major hormone drop, and then I had already been having signs with the intrusive thoughts and things like that, signs of depression during my pregnancy. And so when I was a week postpartum, I remember waking up that morning and just looking at my husband and being like, I'm not okay. Like, I need to go to the hospital right now. I am not okay. And I couldn't get out of bed. I was already fearful of the night to come, and I had just woken up in the morning. Like, I was already fearful of what the next night was going to be like, and it was just hard, and I felt so heavy. So my husband took me to the hospital. We have amazing parents and in-laws that are here, that were able to take care of my son while my husband took me to the hospital. And I remember one of the nurses at the hospital, they were so kind. Oh my gosh, they were so kind. And I remember the nurse looked at me and she was like, "You are so brave for coming now." Because so many women just try to shove it off, and they try to push through it, and they try to, or they just don't even recognize that there's something off, there's something wrong. And I just remember the nurse being like, "You are very brave for coming as soon as you did." And she just commended me for doing that. So if that's something that you need to hear, there you go. But at that point, they put me on Zoloft, which is an antidepressant medication. So I was on that medication for about 6 months postpartum. And I will tell you, there's a whole lot of conundrum around antidepressants. And I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of being on it forever. I totally 100% recognize that some people do, and that's just a fact, and that's their journey with their doctor. Also, I totally forgot to mention at the beginning too that I have major family history of anxiety and depression. So I think that also plays, your genes just also play a part of, obviously, in mental health or just health in general. So that's that too. But with an antidepressant, I don't believe I had ever been on one before, but during that time, I needed one. I needed it. I could not function without that relief. And it honestly felt like a veil had been lifted over my eyes. It was just like it was almost like St. Paul in the Bible, where like the scales just fell off of his eyes. Like you could just see more clearly what's even going on here. And that really saved that postpartum experience for me with my son. And but my goal though was still to only be on it temporarily, especially because it just gives me some weird side effects that I'm not a huge fan of. So I was on it for about 5-6 months postpartum, and I was still continuously seeing that counselor. And with those two things, that was what like saved my sanity, saved my life, was seeing this counselor regularly and being on this medication for a time. About 5 or 6 months postpartum, I had decided, okay, I'm feeling okay. I had been working really, really hard with my counselor on building tools to use when I'm feeling down, or I feel like I'm spiraling, or I feel, I just feel it coming on, right? I'd been working really hard on building up tools to combat those. So around 5-6 months postpartum, I was like, okay, I think I can get off this medication. I weaned off of it. I don't ever recommend just stopping cold turkey because that can really spiral you back. So I weaned off of it and I was good. We were good. I was like, okay, my son was about 6 months old and we were good. Then with my second, I got pregnant with her when, my son had to have been, let's think about math here for a second. Well, I had her right before he was 2. So yeah, he was a little over 1 year old when I got pregnant with her. And one of the first symptoms that I had when I got pregnant with her was I felt that depression come back again. Now, I was not working at least full time. Yeah, I was working part-time from home at this point. So I was not working full-time. So it may have just been that I had more space to recognize that was there. I don't know if that would have been the same with my son. If I hadn't been working full-time and I had more of this space to recognize it, I don't know. But anyways, with that being said, it was one of the first symptoms of being pregnant with her was that the depression came back. So I was like, well, okay. So I ended up just getting back on the medication and I was working with my doctor. I know that there's some conundrum again with being on antidepressants while you're pregnant. I needed it to function and I needed it to be a good mother. So there's that. I went back on the medication and I was on it for basically my whole pregnancy and again about 6 months postpartum. And it was really bizarre because I was even on a higher dose. Like it was just really, really, it was worse. I was on a higher dose anyhow, but I gave birth to her 6 months postpartum. I was able to wean off again and doing the same thing, seeing my same counselor, working through those same tools to help when I felt down. And also too, just your hormones are going crazy when you're pregnant and postpartum. So sometimes it's just the regulation of those hormones that needs to happen and you feel better. So I don't know. There's a lot of different moving parts here, but I was able to get off of it around 6 months postpartum again with her. Okay. Fast forward then to my third pregnancy. So my 1-year-old now, I got pregnant with her. Again, math. I had her when my daughter was 2.5. So they're about 2.5 years apart. So my daughter was 1.5 years, 1 year and 3/4. Okay. When I got pregnant with her. And at this point, I had been on and off of that same medication and I recognized, I was familiar with it. I knew the side effects of it. I knew how my body reacted to it. I mentioned earlier that I had some side effects on it that I wasn't hugely fond of, but it was more of just like, okay, which evil do I want to pick? Do I want depression or do I want these other side effects? And at some point you kind of have to weigh the cost. And so I was really trying to hold off on being on the antidepressant again with my third. I was really trying to hold off. And so instead, my doctor had me taking progesterone during my first trimester of pregnancy, which first of all is something that many, many women need who, especially if they're having recurrent miscarriages or they just have a depletion of progesterone and they need that progesterone to sustain the pregnancy. That is bioidentical progesterone is pure magic. It is pure gold. So apparently, it can also help with depression symptoms when you're pregnant. I don't really know the science behind that, but there you have it. So I was able to hold off until about 12, 13 weeks, like start of my second trimester. And at that point, I had been taking progesterone, but it just wasn't cutting it anymore. So I ended up going back on the Zoloft, that antidepressant medication, but I was able to remain at half a dose that I was at with my second pregnancy. So that was what I thought was a win. And I was able to maintain that for the rest of pregnancy and the rest of postpartum. Now, the weird thing that happened and kind of where we're at right now, I already told you this daughter is a year old now. She just turned a year last week. And I was not able to get off of that dang thing. I had tried, I think twice. So my daughter was born July of 2024. And my second daughter, my third kid, was born July of 2024. And so I was thinking, okay, my track record is 6 months-ish, and then I'll wean off and it'll be great. So I remember around, I think I tried to wean off of it even before that, because I was like, I can do this now. I've been around this a whole lot now to know how my body reacts to it. So I think it was around October. So I was like 3 or 4 months postpartum that I tried getting off of it, and I tried to wean off, and you guys, I totally spiraled, like really bad, and just went straight back into this depressive mode. And so I'm like, okay, too early. I got back on the medication, and it was hard. I'm just going to say this. It was hard to not feel like a failure. It was hard to feel like, okay, this is something like logically I can see this is something that I need in order to maintain myself and to be able to be a good mother right now and to be a good wife right now. This is something that my family needs of me. And logically I can say that, but in my heart, it still really felt like I was a failure. Like, other people don't need this medication, and other people don't have this problem. Other people can be a good mother without pills. There was a lot of lies that I was trying to combat here. And still working with the same counselor. I always recommend, especially if you're on an antidepressant, work with a counselor at the same time, just to be building tools in your tool belt when those symptoms start to come back. So I was kind of fighting that, but I did just have to sit down and recognize this is something that I need for the sake of my family right now. Okay. So then so that was around 3 or 4 months postpartum. Then I tried again, I think like 7 months postpartum. I think it was around January. So the following January, she was born in July, the following January, I tried to get off of it again. And at this point I'm like, okay, this is when I was able to get off of it with my first two. So shouldn't be a problem, right? Wrong. Oh my gosh. I completely spiraled again. And I'm weaning off of it. I'm not cutting it off cold turkey. Like, I am doing all the things that I've done in the past, and I still was not able to get off of it. And it was very, very bizarre. And at this point I'm like, what the heck is going on? Now, one thing that I am just remembering now, and is a huge part of this that I need to mention, kind of going back actually earlier to when my daughter was first born. So there is another treatment option out there that's not commonly, I guess it's not common, it's not widely known, but there's another treatment option for postpartum depression out there. With progesterone shots. So progesterone, remember, just a tiny little lesson here. Progesterone is the hormone that rises after you ovulate. So in a typical cycle, your progesterone is going to start to rise and stay high in that post-ovulation phase of your cycle. When you have your period, that's when progesterone is dropping, and that's what's triggering your next period, right? So your progesterone during your pregnancy also is very, very high because, first of all, you are still producing progesterone, but the baby is also producing progesterone. Progesterone is it's called progesterone because it's pro-gestation. Also, my son is totally playing with Legos and cars right now. So if you hear crashing, that's what's happening. So progesterone. So a treatment option for postpartum depression can be progesterone shots. So progesterone, bioidentical progesterone. So this isn't a synthetic it's not a fake progesterone. It's a bioidentical progesterone. It's the same chemical makeup of the progesterone that your own body produces. So it's different from like the synthetic progesterone that you'd see in the pill or something like that. This is totally different. So there's 3 ways to take it. There's oral, there's vaginal, so with vaginal suppositories, or you could get a shot, so intramuscular. And so the treatment for postpartum depression are progesterone shots that you would really need it in a series. So typically it's given in a series of, so you'd have 5 shots and you would take it every other day for 10 days. Now, back when I had my first, so my son, it was starting to become known of this treatment. And my doctor at the time had recommended it, but he only offered me 1 shot. So I got a shot of progesterone right before I left the hospital, actually, with my son. And it did nothing for me. Now, that is not to say that it doesn't do anything for other people. I have heard from plenty of clients and friends who have had this postpartum depression shot, this progesterone shot, and it takes like 30 minutes and they feel like a new woman. Like it's magic. It is gold. But that's just not what happened for me. And so, but I only got 1 with my son and it didn't work. A week later, I was back in the hospital. So I think with my second, I was just like, meh, that didn't work. I'm not even going to deal with that. I'm just going to go back on the pill. The pill meaning the antidepressant pill. And then with my third, I had been wanting to try that again. And with my third, I was also with a different doctor that had a different way of doing it. So what she offered for me is the series of injections. So again, 5 injections every other day for 10 days. Meaning 1 injection every other day for 10 days. So I decided, okay, let's do that. I've never had this series before, so let's just see how that goes. And so I got my first shot when I was still in the hospital. And then every other day, my sister-in-law is a nurse, because these shots, you bring them home and you're supposed to either ask your husband to be brave or you just do it yourself, which I was going to do neither of. So my sister-in-law is a nurse. And so I just begged her to come over. And also just to put this out there, the shots go in your butt. So my sister-in-law and I got real close. So she's phenomenal. She was so great about it. But anyways, so she came over every other day to give me these shots after I left the hospital. I did feel a slight relief with the series. I did. But then once the series ended, I just kind of went right back to where I was. So I talked to my doctor about that, and she had mentioned that you can get the series a second time. So I don't remember how long it was between my first and second series, but I know it wasn't like a super long amount of time. It was maybe a month, maybe a few weeks between my first and second series. But I had a second series done. Again, my sister-in-law, phenomenal woman. and again, I felt a little bit of relief, but just not enough to cut it. And when I was done with the series, I went right back I just slipped right back into the depression. So I continued to stay on the antidepressant. Now, I say this though, because that's just my experience. But I still want to reiterate that there are so many women that this is the answer, that these progesterone shots are the key, the lock and key to healing their postpartum depression. I'm thinking of a friend right now who, when she had a really, really bad postpartum experience, she got 1 progesterone shot, and it 30 minutes later, it didn't even take long. 30 minutes later, it was like the veil had lifted, and she was a new woman. So there are some women that it is really helpful for them, and other women like me that it's not, but it's still worth doing, I think, especially just at least once to see how your body reacts to it. And if you're hearing this and you're like, okay, yeah, this is something that I need. And this is not part of conventional medicine, you guys. Okay. This is kind of a newer thing that's coming out. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look for a research study on this, and I'll put it in the show notes below. or at least an article kind of talking about what this is. And then if you are wanting this, or you want to chat with your doctor about it and your doctor's never heard of this, never done something like this, just show them the research, show them what it even is. And you never know, they might be interested, they might be willing to work with you and just try it out. So, but typically with progesterone, with this bioidentical progesterone, it's made in a compounding pharmacy. So it's not just something that Walgreens is going to have over the counter, but talk to your doctor about it for sure and see if it's something that they're willing to do. And again, I will put some more research about it in the show notes so that you can read more about it. You can give it to your doctor, all the things. So anyhow, I get to a year postpartum with my third, which is where I'm at right now. I don't know. Do you consider yourself postpartum when you're a year? I don't know, but I got to a year. And I breastfeed my kids for about a year. And so around this time, like literally in the last few weeks, I was still on this dang medication. And it has been, like I said, I had weird side effects with it. And it was just getting to the point where I'm like, at this point, I think I would take the depression over these other side effects. So I had good conversation with my husband, good conversations with my counselor, and I decided I was going to get off of it now. So I weaned myself. My counselor told me to pick a date, like put it on the calendar to just have it there of the day that I'm going to stop. And actually that was a day that I was not going to take it anymore. So for the few weeks before that date, I was weaning myself off. So I was like cutting the pill in half, and only taking half of a pill for a few weeks. And then I got off of it literally in the last few weeks. And I was kind of bracing myself because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. This time around has been weird. And I will tell you that it has not been as difficult as it was the first 2 times with this postpartum experience, that it has not been that difficult. I have not been spiraling, and I have not been feeling like I need to go back on it. With that being said, I definitely have felt different. Like I can tell that the depression is, it's like lingering. It's kind of there. But you guys, at this point, I have had five freaking years of therapy. And you know what? I'm proud. I am proud of that because I'm a much more emotionally stable person now than I was. But, and that's just thanks to my therapist. He's phenomenal and wonderful. So working very, very closely with my therapist while I am weaning off of this, while I'm getting off of it. And at this point too, with 5 years of therapy, I have really, really grown in those tools of how to manage this postpartum depression or pregnancy-induced depression, where, with those intrusive thoughts, I just let them go. I know that they're not me. They are not my thoughts. And I just in one ear and out the other, and I just move on. And they do not affect me nearly as much as they did 5 years ago when I was first experiencing them. And on days where I just feel like I can just kind of feel like, okay, today is a day that if I sit down and start doing nothing, I'm going to spiral and I'm going to get frazzled and I'm not going to be a very good mother or wife today. So when I'm starting to feel that, one of the tools in my toolbox is I just stand up and I grab the kids and we get in the car and we just go. Because for me, something that is I'm not a homebody. I like to go experience things, I love restaurants. I love I love going places. Now, when I'm not going through this whole depression thing, I'm fine being home. And on days that are good, I'm fine being home. But on those days that come every once in a while where I'm just feeling like I'm going to spiral, I grab the kids, I get in the car, and we just go somewhere. And I will tell you too that it's literally a budget item for my husband and I, is on these days where I'm feeling depressed and I'm feeling like I'm going to spiral, I take the kids and we go to, there's like a gymnastics place across the street, and we go to open gym, and that is a cost. I might take the kids to Chick-fil-A, and that is a cost. I might take the kids to like the children's museum down the road or something, and that is a cost. But I will tell you that that cost of getting out of the house and going to do something, or I mean, free, we go to the library. That's another thing that we'll do when I don't want to spend money. But I had to become okay with spending a little bit of money to get myself out of the house, to get myself out of that kind of tizzy. And once I do that, when I come back home after that, I'm good. And typically at that point, like it's either lunchtime or nap time or almost time to make dinner, and I've got a purpose again, right? I'm not just standing in my house wandering around looking for something to do when I'm seeing all of these to-dos around me. And that's overwhelming, and that's what causes me to spiral. I get out of the house, I go, I sometimes I spend a little money, but it's literally a budget item, you guys. It is literally something that I allow myself to do in order to get myself out of that funk. And that's been incredibly helpful. And it's been a conversation between my husband and I, and it's something that we just know that, okay, on those really bad days, yeah, we might go to Chick-fil-A for lunch that day, but it gets me out of the house. It gets the kids out of the house. And it's just priorities of what are you spending money on? What are you going to go do? It's just priorities. You can put anything in your budget as long as you prioritize it. You may have to give another thing up, but what are your priorities? So that is really the biggest tool in my toolbox, is getting out of the house when I am feeling like that. So literally just the other day, we went camping this last weekend, and I was super excited about it. We had many friends coming. It was great. And then I got home, and we came home Sunday. Monday came around, and I just had a total letdown. Like, there's nothing to look forward to anymore. And now I just have buckets and buckets full of laundry, and a trailer to clean, and coolers to clean out, and just all of the things felt very overwhelming to me. And I'm typically like a very task-oriented to-do kind of person. And I want that stuff done and just done, so I don't have to look at it anymore. But that Monday rolled around, and I just looked at all of these things that were very overwhelming, and I recognized I was starting to spiral. And so I literally picked my kids up, I put them in the car, and where did we go? I think I took them to, where did we go? I took them somewhere. Maybe it was like, there's like a indoor jungle gym thing down the road. That's probably where I took them to. Anyways, no, sorry. Not that this is like super important or anything. We went to the mall. Because they have like a fun kids playground area, and they have a Lego store, which my son loves. So we went to the mall, and that was very therapeutic. Just getting out of the house and going somewhere. And I came home from that, and I felt totally fine. So it's just a matter of getting those tools in your toolbox to help you through those hard days. Now, for you, if this is something that you're experiencing, I don't know what your story is. I don't know if medication was your option. I don't know if progesterone was your option. Hopefully counseling is at least in your in a quiver in your toolbox, or in your sheath, quiver, whatever. Anyways, I don't know what the answer is for you that you've chosen, but I am just telling you from my experience that it is okay to be on the medication if that is something that you need to be a good mother and to be a good wife. But if it is something like, if you're like me, where you're not a huge fan of the side effects, or you're just one of those people that just does not like being on medication, I totally get that too. I'm very similar. It's okay to see a therapist, get a really good one if you can. Ask around, ask friends, ask family if they have good recommendations for a good therapist if you don't already have one. Get a therapist. Oh my goodness. And then be on the medication as you need, but know that there are other things that you can do. Progesterone shots, right? Or if you're pregnant, getting that progesterone. getting these tools in your toolbox of getting outside. Also, oh my gosh, that's another huge thing for me, is going outside. Now, you guys, I live in Arizona. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and holy cow, it is July 25th as I'm recording this today, and it is freaking hot. So I am not going outside right now. That is why we went to the mall, an indoor mall, the other day. But during our winter, when it's actually nice here, I go outside. Just putting your bare feet in the grass and just being in the sunshine, that automatically has a change of how it changes your mood. So that automatically is a very helpful thing. That not necessarily being an option for me right now, I choose to then go to an indoor mall or a gymnastics place or Chick-fil-A. And those are 3 great options. If you have more, let me know. But having something to go do, giving yourself a purpose, even if it's just a small purpose for that day, can really help. Because it's when we sit on the couch and we start to spiral and we start to think about all of our to-dos and none of it is actually things that we want to do. It's overwhelming and it makes you spiral. So go outside, go somewhere and see a therapist. Oh my goodness. Talk to your doctor about the possibilities of that progesterone shots, and let me know if this is something that you are going through and you need to talk to somebody and you need some advice or whatever you need. I am somebody here that has gone through it 3 different times. It has looked different 3 different times, and I have some experience with this. So if you want to get in touch with me to chat about it, I would love to walk you through that. You can email me at haley@truthandfertility.com. So it's HALEY @truthandfertility.com. You can also visit my website, truthandfertility.com. All the good things. You guys, I hope that this was a help for you today, and even just in solidarity, because so many women experience this and so many women don't have the help that they need when they are experiencing this and they don't have those tools. So I hope that if anything, this episode just gave you another tool in your toolbox to help you through and to even recognize, hey, there's something going on. Let's work through it and let's journey through it. And in the spirit of being a culture of life,
all of you have to listen to Jesus and follow Jesus. All that is what I have to say, and I'm glad to speak to you. That's all I have to say.
Thanks for listening to the Truth and Fertility podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please leave a 5-star review. That helps me tremendously. For more information about learning to chart your fertility cycle, you can visit truthandfertility.com, and I'll talk to you guys again next week.